press of the world wants to have a conversation after that, and so the apologies to Sports Time Machine, Mr. Mike. I've been requested for an exclusive interview by Chester Field, and we'll be fielding his questions.
Yes, couple of questions here first. Let me see. How does it feel to come out on top of one of these replays?
Well, when you're playing with yourself, you're going to come out on top anyway. Thanks. It actually, you know what? Thank you, darling. In all seriousness, I think I went because I did the home team. The Expos went 4-1 at home, and Baltimore went 2-3. So I think what is that, 7-4?
Can you spell Expos for me?
Natio no EXPOS.
Okay, is it 2 X's? Like Exxon?
It depends on what part of Montreal you're in at the time.
Is that like Exxon?
No, 1X.
How come they're the Expos and not the SOs?
Actually, it was something I was going to use in the broadcast and forgot to do. It's in all seriousness, the Montreal held the World's Fair in 1967, in which is called an exhibition. Obviously, in the States, we know all about the two that New York held. And I think Knoxville held the World's Fair in 82. Someone can correct me on that. But that's where they were named. Montreal opened up the world, Canada, the world in 1967 with the exposition, and that was it. That's how they got called the Expos.
Oh, wow.
True story. It was actually the first ever color television broadcast in Canada and was opened, I believe, on the Canada Centennial in July 1st, 67. So
I think one of the either first live or first color broadcasts in United States, I think it was actually a hockey game. It was a Rangers game, I'm pretty sure.
Pretty sure it was.
There was something weird like that, yeah. Like, imagine a hockey game in the 40s or 50s being broadcast. Like, what is that,
Well, and NBC was right there, and the Rangers, it wasn't difficult to televise out in New York.
Right.
Of course, there was 5 people watching.
Yeah. So, all right. So, you got this project done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is this your longest project?
I think as far as amount of actual streams and hours and stuff, yeah. We went 28 weeks. We had the week off or actually kind of 29 weeks of the regular season. We had the week off when I had the elbow injury, and then I got nailed by the ice cream cart. And then I took a vacation week for my wife's birthday in the first week of July. And so we started in second week of January, and today's the 10th of August. So yeah,
that's right. You started this back in January. Now, did you finish the football project and then start this, or were you running concurrently for a while?
We did, because the conference championship games were at night. I knew that the lunch slots were open, and so I was going to start at Super Bowl week, because there's only the one game anyway. So it started concurrent with the last 2 playoff weeks of the NFL season from 78.
Hey, Rob's in the chat. Rob, I was watching some of your racing. I gotta thinking about picking that up. I keep watching you play the racing game.
He swears his name is Chester Field. I
am Chester Field. But anyway, yeah, we wanted to get on real quick, and the project wrapped up tonight.
About 8 months. So about 32 weeks.
That's a long project.
It is, but it's my favorite sport. And so it never felt like it was a grind. I mean, it takes more to prepare. You saw the graphics that we did for the World Series and trying to find the music and stuff. The World Series MVP, you see you have other questioners here, was Jerry White. He had 4 homers in the series, including the big 2-run shot tonight that put him up, and they never fell back down. I mean, Baltimore tied game 6, but Montreal never lost the lead.
The one thing that disappoints me about the Dave Koch sports games always has been when the game ends, it just comes up final score. I
Yeah,
mean,
you'd like to
you got
have a
8
replay.
months into this. You get 8 months into this project. And I know the game doesn't know that. And I know that, how you're supposed to know. But the idea that the game's over and it's just like final score, click OK, game, we're done. It's like I've always wanted something especially in the playoffs. Give me something a little bit more. Give me fireworks or something. Give me
It
a
didn't, even I forgot every time that the football games ended, it would tell you Washington is advanced or Pittsburgh won the championship or whatever it was. But it was just a little one line on the screen, and it would have been nice for the clinchers in Montreal. Here we go. Here's a message for you.
I was told to go play some Downey racing. They had some good games. I love the Downey games.
That they didn't kind of all dogpile on each other. You got to make it up, but you're storytelling anyway. And so, yeah, it's kind of anticlimactic to see Youngblood make the final out and then boom.
Yeah, and it's always been that way because I watched you play in the past. You've done some Super Bowls. I've played some hockey over here myself, and it just ends, and it's like that's it.
Yeah.
Thanks for playing. It's like it's like whoa. It's like come on, that was a big deal. It's like my team won or my team lost. It was whatever. It's just like final score. It was just like another day. It's just like okay.
Yeah, and that's kind of but the magic to all these, and don't forget to either go back and to watch Sports Time Machine when we're done, or go watch him on tape delay later because I feel bad that we're taking this slot from him. Yeah, I mean, you put all the work into it, and it means something to you, and you tell the stories, and you don't know how it's going to come out. You can only hope that you get something competitive and at the end. So, I mean, yeah, I'd much rather have had them all dogpiling than how this ended.
Even back in the days of the Sega football games, there was always some kind of a fanfare if you won the championship, and that's just not there with this. Not that I expected a big presentation, but
I mean, you run into some copyright issues, I think, if you did too much with that.
Yeah, but I mean, you could have a generic trophy or something pop up and say, "Hey, here are the champions,"
And so I knew that Montreal had the chance to clinch tonight, and so I got onto my studio software and made up that banner. And then figuring if it went 7, I was running out of room to actually have hotkeys, and I would have made an Oriole one if I needed to for Game 7. And you just hope that you hit the right button after the game. But yeah, just to make it kind of something there. I mean, as we said, we've been doing this for 30 some odd weeks, and something a little more than just Montreal 5, Baltimore 3.
Now, did you think of it like today when you were, whatever? Did you think about that Montreal winning and what you would feel if they won?
Yeah, I mean, there was some good prep work for this one. You don't ever try to script out what you're going to say. I knew that whether it ended tonight or tomorrow afternoon, it would be emotional. But beyond that, you're kind of hoping in the back of your mind it goes 7. I mean, there was no wrong team to win this series. If Baltimore had won it in 6, I would have been fine with that as well. But yeah, you knew kind of going into today felt different. Game 1 felt different because it was the World Series, and you kind of settle into a groove. But tonight felt different because you knew that this was going to be over. And really, it was the only time in the World Series that you had a game where it could be over. I mean, we went the first 5 games, and it was even Steven all the way through.
I'm just wondering for myself because I got the 74 Bruins. I'm playing on Dave Koch Sports Action PC Hockey. I'll probably make the playoffs. I'll probably play some of the playoffs. And I'm just, like I say, I'm not really doing a game of the week like you did. I'm strictly playing Boston. But I'm just wondering what would happen if the Bruins actually win that season. It would just, I'm not sure. I know I have it's not as play for me. I've added some guys to the team, but I
That's
mean,
hard to do for hockey, though.
as you saw, the team that I have is still losing plenty of games to bad teams.
It it is when you get a good series going, or when you're playing your favorite team, such an emotional high when they do well for you in front of you, because they're playing it specifically for you. And I'm lucky enough to share this stuff with you guys, and along with Clinton and Higher Ground and Al and you and everyone else, that we share this passion. But knowing that I wasn't going through this experience alone, and it's the Expos never did anything in real life. I mean, we know about Blue Monday. We know how the 81 season ended, and they never did it. They were never given the chance in 94 with the strike. And so I think for me, it meant a little bit more because they never got the chance to do this. Now, if Baltimore had won, for me, it would have been good because this was Weaver's swan song. He wasn't getting back to the series. He'd come back another 85 or 86. Someone will tell me in the chat and I'll post that. But he never got back to the World Series. And then they go out and win it in 83 with his team with another manager. I mean, just how crappy is that for Earl?
Who
It's his
actually won it?
players.
Who played in 82 and who won it?
It was Milwaukee and St. Louis won in 7. They won it in St. Louis in Game 7.
Did either Baltimore or Montreal make the playoffs that year?
No, these were two teams that didn't make the playoffs. Montreal beat out Baltimore on the last weekend of the season, and St. Louis won that division by a mile. Or everything was close, but Montreal contended, but they weren't in it in the final say. So, and I don't know if they would have what they would have done, guys, because they were in the NLCS in 81 and would have won the World Series in 82. And, I did try to call the games evenly. I didn't root against Baltimore. You want good series. And for the most part, except for Game 5, which was a blowout, 6-0 Montreal, every game in this series was competitive. It wasn't that difficult to call it down the middle.
It is, though. I see his point because, even when I'm playing my football games here, whether it's, game-winning drive or Mike Sealock or what, if it's usually a quicker play game, you still got the teams you're like, I don't want them to win, or, oh, it's the Patriots playing, or it's Tampa Bay playing. Oh, you want them to win. And it is hard to watch them lose, but, you still play it out and you still have some fun with it. I know when I did the Super Bowl, Tampa Bay made the Super Bowl in that replay that I did in game-winning drive, and they lost. And they lost badly. The 4 interceptions by Doug Williams in my role, And but it was I still played the game. I really didn't think about it till it was over. And I was like, oh man, they were in the Super Bowl. But I was so busy setting up the game and playing the game. There's so much else going on. You almost can't concentrate on the game because you know what I mean? Like you got it all set up. You got your graphics. You want to make sure the camera's working. There's so much else going on when you stream that sometimes the game takes a back seat.
Well, you try not to do that, and it was, fortunately, I remembered my mistake from the other day, and I put the batting stats on the same Excel sheet. So all I had to do was scroll up and down to get that. But when Palmer got in trouble in the second, because I figured they were going to kind of cruise, and so I probably had the first time through the order to go through and relay all that information and set it up, and I had the Knoxville thing in my head, and I was going to do something with that, and then Palmer got racked. And then you got to start making decisions because the AI hook is rather slow. And you know that if they had runner bases loaded or runners on whatever it was, I mean, they were threatening to score again. And if it got 4-1, 5-1, 6-1 in the second, well, it's over. Baltimore wasn't going to come back from that. And then you got to figure out how to fill time. It's 2 blowouts in a row. I mean, yeah, you can set up Montreal winning the championship, but that's you do what you got to do, and but then so yeah, so I didn't really have time, and the game kind of took over early enough that I got to focus. And honestly, I'm out for my walk this morning, spending time with my wife, and I'm thinking, do I do Palmer or do I go with Davis? And that's how you know that you're into it. I'm sure Clinton's done enough games that he can probably vouch for that. So I'm here spending time with the wife on time I'm not supposed to be thinking about what my streaming job, and I'm thinking Palmer or Davis. And that's kind of, yeah, you know, you're into it when you're thinking that, you know, what moves am I going to make this a decent game? And like I said, you know, then the storyline of the game was Earl wanted a 7, but they talked him into it. There's no 7 if you don't win tonight, and so Earl went with it, and it backfired. But you're damned if you do, and you're damned if you don't. So yeah, you know, as far as thought processes, oh yeah, I was nervous going into the night.
So,
Dave Van Horn did a great job as the Expos play-by-play guy for years, and Duke Snyder was his color guy back in the '80s.
so this is a long project. I said 8 months.
8 months.
8 months. You wrapped it up. Um, would you do another project like this, or do you need to take a break from something like this? Is that it takes a lot out of you? You know, how much recovery time do you need?
I couldn't go and do another long-term baseball project after this. We've talked, I know, someone mentioned if an '80s tournament, and I've got some ideas for shorter things. But I'm glad that I get to switch sports for the next long-term project. I was done with football by the time that the Steelers beat the Cowboys. And if I went back and watched the end of that game, I probably would kick myself for not giving the Steelers the right call, because that was a hell of a game. The Cowboys scored with 4.5 to go. My internet goes out. Got to rescramble that, and the Steelers just marched the ball right down the field to win the Super Bowl. I mean, how good is that? And like hopefully I haven't watched it. Hopefully I got properly excited for when the Steelers won. It was great game, but I was ready to be done with football for a while. No, I'm not ready to jump into a 90 game project on Tuesday. you know. Yeah, and that's the other thing was, I did some other things for streaming. We did some Pro Football Classics, the AFL thing I'm excited about. I've tried out some other things. Appa Chatter gets a cookie because he guessed right. I'm trying to find other things to do online that aren't sports sim related, so that when I go to do that's my focus. So I'm not feeling I'm doing it all the time. uh, yeah. No, it was, do you want butter or cream cheese on your bagel, fat boy? But I try not to. Sarah doesn't care about those things. But yeah, it does get exhausting, and just like with anybody else, just like the teams on the field, you have your good nights and your bad nights. And that as things start to wind down and you get into playoffs, that more people pay attention. And you don't want to. You said you're going to do some high school football this year?
Yeah, I got the message the other day. They want me to do 3 games. For some reason they're only doing 3 this year. Last year I think I did 6 or 7, but yeah, the same town down here. They want me back to do some more games. So
but maybe they'll add the Thanksgiving game, which for you is the remember, I went to college with a bunch of people from your neck of the woods, so I do know about that.
Yeah, I actually, that's when I got sick. That's how my whole sickness started. I was sick all winter because of that. Because the night before Thanksgiving, it was going to be record cold, and Thanksgiving was record cold. For some reason, last Thanksgiving was record cold. So they decided some places were canceling the games on Thursday.
That's right. I do remember that.
Remember that. And so I was all excited to do a Thursday morning Thanksgiving Day game, and they moved it to Wednesday night at 6 o'clock because of the weather was going to be so bad. Well, let me tell you, the weather on Wednesday night before Thanksgiving was still, it was, I don't know if it was 20s or teens or whatever, but the wind blew and I got really sick from that. I got bronchitis or something like that.
Oof.
But I was knocked out. In fact, that's when I started listening and watching you. And then that was right after I had gout. I had gout, and I remember being sick in bed watching one of your lunchtime streams. And I remember typing in the chat. I said, "I'm home here. I can't move. I got gout." And then the medicine I was on from gout, lowered my immunity because it was antibiotics, and that's how I got the bronchitis from Thanksgiving. So that's where my trouble started last year. So I don't have any good memories or recollections of a Thanksgiving football day game. But so if they ask me, I'll do it again this year. It was fun doing high school football. It really was. But
yeah. So it's in essence, I've done about 49 weeks of lunchtime games on Tuesdays and Thursdays, with maybe 1 week off, maybe two. And so, I mean, that's a lot.
So now that it's over, A, has it hit you yet? And B, did you want it to end? Were you having a good time with this? Did you want it to keep going? Or were you like, I've had enough, I want this to stop?
No, I mean, part of me wanted a game 7 tomorrow, because that's, you're a hockey fan. It's the most magical 2 words in sports is game 7. And you don't get that in football. You get everything being one and done, and everything in football means so much more. But, part of me wanted a game 7. Part of me is really glad that Montreal won. I would have hated the series to go back and have Baltimore win game 6 and 7. Not that I was against Baltimore, but it's like, really? Imagine how that would have played up there. They got it. They're up 3-2, and they're there, and they can't close the door. Part of me is glad it's over. And part of me will miss it. I mean, all of our channels have grown a great deal since the end of my football season, which has nothing to do with one correlating with the other. But this, I'm excited about what's coming in the future. But I really was emotional at the end of that game. And I think even if the Yankees had won the World Series, the fact that it was over, that this project was done, that kind of hit me about the 8th inning.
Now, when you started this back in January, were you thinking about how long this was going to take and say, I'm in January here and it's going to be, probably close to August 10th before I finish? Did that enter your mind at the beginning? Or you just said, well, I'm going to start this project and I know it's going to be a while and I'll do some other stuff on the side, but
keep me busy till we got to football season again. And I didn't know how it would go. I mean, it took, I remember being excited like the 3rd week of the football season that a video I did had streamed 600 minutes in a day. And I think this World Series will probably be close to about 10,000, I think, by the time all is said and done after Sunday, Monday, over in the 6 games. And so, I hope I improved as an announcer. I certainly had a lot of fun with the chat. The puns were funny, and I learned a lot about this game that I love over the last 8 months. I'm glad it kind of took a life of its own, as all good projects should do. And I guess that's what I'm going to miss the most about it. I mean, it'll be a somewhat different crowd for the football season. And that's okay. It'll be a whole different people or not whole different people, but new people and all that. But as we were going down, and Appachatter's got a good question I'll post in a second. I mean, being able to come up with the storylines. I don't know what brand of cigarette Earl smoked. I knew it was last year. I knew they had a chance to win it in the last weekend, and Palmer lost on the final day of the season. The whole thing with Alan Trammell. Alan Trammell's a Hall of Famer. And then, I'm giving him crap and he gets a base hit. In the chat talking about George Hendrick. I mean, Al tonight joking about the team immediately moving to Washington and season tickets will be on sale Monday in DC. I mean that's the sort of thing that you just kind of, baseball is such a background sport. It's not one that you need to be watching and listening to the entire game, as opposed to football, which kind of does need your attention. And so to be able to, at least in some small way, uh, play a soundtrack for people over lunch was fun. It made it all worthwhile. Here's Chester. Someone's got a question. What did I enjoy most about the whole process? I loved being forced to, and I'm not saying force in a bad word, watching an entire season play out, not knowing what was going to happen from week to week, trying to figure out what the best games were going to be to show, what's going to be the storylines, not making sure that you weren't stuck with the Yankees 25 times when they weren't doing anything or whatever. Disappointing or frustrating? I wanted more races. We only got one race that was close. Um, Arguing with people about how to manage. I mean, it's not. I don't want to. It's none of this is difficult, okay? But it's not really easy when you're sitting there and you're trying to play the game, describe the game, interact with people during the game, trying to make the right decisions, and then you get arguing with people about what they want you to do, especially when you're on a delay. I think that to me was the most disappointing thing. But, that 98% of the process was just fantastic.
What would you do different?
I may do one taped game a week next year. The two live games on Tuesday and Thursday at lunch, and maybe just run one on tape just to get a call. I mean, one of the things that you never know what. I mean, two-thirds of all of our audiences watch on delay. They're not watching live. And so if you are watching full screen, you don't see the jokes in the chat. I might read some of them. I might be laughing at times when someone's falling off a pitch and you don't know what's going on. And so I would like to make sure that those viewers get the full experience of a game without, I don't want to say getting silly, but I mean, no one's ever complained about it. But maybe that, the two live games on Tuesday and Thursday at lunch, and sometime along that line, a taped game, so that people who watch on tape can just get a game.
Did you ever have a point in this project that you either wanted to stop or take a large break, or at any point be like, wow, this is too much?
No, not for baseball. Not for baseball. I mean, it was going well enough. And the one thing that we all see as content creators is our numbers. And so you knew going in how many people had watched the week before, and it was going up. And so having people be part of the process, whether it was commenting after the game or hitting a like or whatever, that makes you want to go on, which I didn't feel that way during the football season. The end of that football season was a grind. And that was just a case of we needed teams to win to get in the playoffs. And no one would ever win that game. And so I think that last week of the season, I did 6 games. And no.
Yeah, and you've admitted before that baseball is your sport, and football,
right.
Football you like, and even though you're really good at the streams, baseball is your sport. So I can see how doing a sport that might not be your favorite, that you don't mind. Football, I thought, well, my opinion, I thought football you did was the best. Probably because I'm not a baseball guy. So
right.
I can't appreciate baseball because I haven't followed baseball since Carlton Fisk was playing with the Red Sox. So I just don't know baseball. So I like the football because I can relate to that, but I can see if you're not big into the sport, that it might get a little hangy.
I knew I knew I had till the middle of August to get this done because I didn't want the projects to. I mean, it's one thing to have an April game overlap a conference championship game. You're not playing them at the same time. I mean, you're playing them the same day, but you weren't playing them at the same time. But I did not want the playoffs for the World Series to overlap with football season because that would have been too much. And higher ground makes a good high. Right. Yeah, and I think that's something I got to work on. But for baseball, I think it's kind of one of those cases where it's relaxed most of the time, and you can do that. You can interact and not lose anything. But that's all a skill that we work on. No, and I mean, Clinton brings up the good point. There was a lot of people who would bring up good stats during the game or good stories or what happened in there, and I'm not dissing the chat at all, but it goes both ways. The football, I think it's a case of every game means something immediately.
Yeah.
There is no week 2 game that if you start off a season 0-2, that's the equivalent in baseball of starting 0-20.
Right. Now, if you had to go back in time for a second, okay, go
Okay.
back in time, okay?
I'll take door number 3, Monty.
Okay. So, was this your favorite replay, or was there one that sticks out for whatever reason? But boy, there's one that sticks out from like 6 years ago that is my favorite.
I did a Sox Mets replay from 06 on Stratomatic, and Pedro Martinez got the Mets to like the 6th or 7th game of the World Series because that was Pedro's last healthy year. The full season Islander replay I did was probably my favorite up until this. Got the Islanders into the Cup Finals. They even took game 1 in Montreal, and that was it. it was over in 5, but we still won in Montreal.
So you played the Islanders, huh?
I played the Islanders. It's one of those because they were now 7, 8, 9 years old.
Yeah.
They were the team, and I mean, Mike Bossy was a scoring machine, and so I learned about Brian Trottier, and I learned about Denny Potvin, and Billy Smith the slasher, and so kind of the point that Higher Ground and Clinton are talking about. I learned a lot more about that team, and really, became a fan of the Fort Never Lose squad through that. Not that it takes anything away from being from a Montreal fan, but my God, they were fun. They could score, they could skate, they could hit.
I remember, Ron. I remember.
Oh, do tell, Uncle Dave.
I think it was back in 82 or 83. They played Boston in I want to say the first round, and Boston had both games at home because they were the higher seed, and the Islanders took them both from Boston at home. And I didn't even watch the rest of the series as a kid. I said you can't lose both games at home, and they did. The Islanders went on to crush them. I think they went on to win that year. Either that or they played the Oilers in the final, one or the other. They either won or runner-ups, but yeah, they crushed Boston at home in 2 games. I was just like, oh.
I was surprised how much I got into the football replay, to the point when the Patriots blew that 10-0 lead to the Steelers in the AFC Championship Series. I remember looking over like this and feeling the air go out of the chat. And I knew at that point, like, oh, then I corrected myself because, you're not supposed to root for anybody to win. You want, you have Steelers fans watching, you have Oriole fans watching, you have fans of everybody, and you want to be as inclusive as possible. But I knew at that point that we had something special. I think that was the turning point for me as doing these games. Not that I didn't mind doing them, and of course the walk-off safety, which will never let me forget. I mean, there were some good games along there and some walk-off wins. I mean, Dallas and Washington played 2 great regular season games. But I realized then, which is the week we started the baseball season, that this was pretty special. And hopefully that carried over in the baseball. I know that you're not a big baseball fan. I know that not everybody who watches is a great baseball fan, but hopefully, what doesn't happen for me watching a game on television today, that love of the game does not come through. And what I hope I gave you, you out there, and maybe Chester himself, is thank you, this is a fantastic game. And B, it should be done by people who love and care about it. And hopefully that came through. And like I said, if the Orioles had won tonight and tomorrow, I'd have been sad for the Expos, but happy for the Orioles. I mean, what a story to be down on the road and come back to wins game 6 and 7. I don't know if that's happened before. I know teams have lost the first two and come back to win, but not to lose 6 and 7 at home. Yes, I know, not baseball fans. And so, yeah, hopefully that came through.
Yeah, I think it did. And even the sports you're not crazy about, you still do a good job. You can tell that, like for me, it's probably hockey. When I do the hockey games, they're very different than anything else I do. The golf is fun. I haven't done much football, but even when I do my football on the screen here, whether it's game winning drive or whatever, I still think hockey because that's my sport.
There is not one sport that I've done, and I think I've done 10 now on this channel, that I said, I can't do this again. It sucked. I might not find the right basketball project, and tennis doesn't seem to go very well, and that's too bad because I like tennis. But we've tried to give everything a go at least once, and there are some things that we are good at, and some things that we're not as good at. But you don't know until you try. Action PC, Rob. If you do computer gaming, Action PC or Fast Action Football, Dave puts in the chat. Do they do college? They do college, don't they?
I think they have some college fast action football. I love that game. It's a long game. Okay. I mean, I got the game winning drive I'm playing right now. And I'm finishing up a season. I'll be starting a new one here. Yeah, but that's a fast one. You could actually play that in a few days. The fast action football, that is a play by play. But let me tell you, I was just talking with somebody on the Delphi forums today about it because he was playing it and we were talking about the momentum in the game. And I just said, I've never felt so immersed in a game, in a single game, I should say. I mean, the action PC hockey, I really like it. I get into that. But as far as the cards and dice type of game, that fast action football, boy.
Board game.
I tell you. Let me see. Fast action football is from Downey Sports, Downey Games.
I've got the Hafner catalog, and so I've got the college basketball game, and even with the DOS box, I can't get it to work right on my computer. I'll have to talk to them about that. But yeah. I guess the other things, projects like this are a challenge to yourself to go through the grind because, I mean, one of the good things is I got to choose the games that I was going to broadcast. And when you have decent races, it's easy to go. I mean, you might not have wanted to see those Chicago White Sox for the 15th time in 3 weeks, but okay, they've just played Detroit, Milwaukee, California, and Kansas City. They've now played all contenders, and they're 2 games out of first place. That's what you're going to see. It would be tougher, I think, going back to your Bruins replay and saying they've just lost to the California Golden Seals and the Washington Capitals on back-to-back nights. Where's the inspiration to go on with that project? We talked about it in one of the Digital to Dice podcasts when projects go south. So that helped to be able to go through. Didn't get the no-hitter. Had an all-star game that was pretty good. Overall, I'm extremely happy with how this came out. I know that not everyone will be, but that's even at the end when it becomes daily for a playoff. 14 games in 16 days. There was only one day I had to do a doubleheader.
Yeah, there was a lot that you did.
We did. It was 8 games for the LCS because Montreal swept Los Angeles, and Baltimore went the distance. I mean, Baltimore was 2-0 in elimination games going into the night. And then the World Series went 6, and we did that in 8 days. We did the World Series in 8 days. And I did not take any. I think I took one. I took like 3 days off after because I was kind of burned after that. Um,
So
never.
tomorrow morning,
Mm-hmm.
you're gonna wake up,
Mm-hmm.
and there's no more games to play for this project. There's no more screens to
Project's done,
set up.
man.
Okay, are you gonna miss it? Are
Yes,
you gonna miss this season?
I will miss the season. I challenged myself in a lot of different ways and came out better for it and made good friends with it too. I mean, that was the one thing that it never really got from the whole writing experience. I mean, yes, there's a couple good friends I got out of that, but the response I got from this project, even the in bad and indifferent, made it all worthwhile to me. And so I will miss that. I will miss the Chesterfield jokes. I mean, Dicka might have a few heart attacks on the sideline coming up for the Bears, or whatever that we do, or Parcells will actually pour the Gatorade bucket on Harry Carson after he gets it dumped on him the first time, or whatever stories. And Joe Montana's going to lock Steve Young in a locker, or whatever. But yes, I will miss that. And it's not like we're going to do 83. People are going to tell me what season I'm playing next year. It's how we did this one. And I think for me, it made for a better replay that people picked a season that they wanted.
So, when looking at a long-term project like this versus a shorter-term project, and I'm not talking short, like a couple of days or whatever, but
No, but
like,
the Patriots thing was 8 weeks.
yeah, okay. So you get 8 weeks compared to 8 months. How do you keep people engaged? So you must do something differently to keep people engaged for an 8-month run versus an 8-week run, or even a 2-week run if you're doing, hey, I'm going to just play a World Series.
Um, the opens. It's important when you start a game to give people a reason to watch. And whether it was to go through, okay, and as Jim Palmer takes his warm up pitches, let's take a look at the standings of where we are. Or what I figured out, doing a Wednesday game. Okay, these two teams met the night before, and Carlton Fisk with a walk-off homer in the 12th sends the White Sox into first place. Give them a reason to hook, and then continuity. I think really having that set schedule of 12 noon on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I mean, it wasn't always that way. Mom might want some lunch, or Sarah might have had an appointment or whatever. But pretty much saying that if you know that at Tuesday at 12 noon, 47 out of 50 weeks, I gave you some entertainment. That's a big deal. I think, you know what you're going to get. And as it gets down the stretch, and because it's nostalgia, some of the players. And so everyone has a rooting interest, I think.
Were you surprised how many people got involved in this project with you along the way?
Yes. Yeah. The football one had done well, and the playoffs had gone well. To consistently look and see twice a week that 100 people would watch a fake ball game from the summer of 82, kind of blows my mind. I mean, I looked up tonight in the 9th inning, and there were 20 people watching that game live. Now, I know a few things about television and radio, and know that slots are what slots work and what slots don't. And if this had gone to a game 7, 4 o'clock on Sundays was a very good slot for me. I knew that game 7 would draw well. But yeah, I'm surprised about the people who stuck with it, because people will sample and people will do that. All right. Well, thanks, Clinton, for joining us.
Oh, Clinton's leaving?
Clinton's leaving. He's going to actually go do something productive.
No, that's too bad.
So, yeah, I'm surprised to the deal that people stuck with it.
When or if ever do you think you'll do a product this size again?
Next January.
You gonna do it again?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you just, it won't be 83, or I'd be surprised if it was 83. But yeah, I will go through in December. I was saying this earlier. Once the night that the game goes live and we do their little demonstration and play a game or two, give me nominations for what season you want. We'll do a poll and people will vote on it. It just passed away. It kept me busy. And in the wintertime, especially, now that Clinton's left, I probably would want to hear this. I can't get out of the house a lot. And so it gave me something to look forward to and something to share. And when they're down in spring, before they're in spring training or down in spring training and the games don't mean anything for real, and by the time that we got to March, we're into almost the All-Star break. And so here's something for baseball fans to sink their teeth into. Here's some meaningful baseball in January. Here's some meaningful baseball in March. Here's an hour to kill. Chat with some buddies, have your lunch, watch the game, and if you come back, great. If not, thanks for watching.
What advice would you have for somebody doing a long project like this to help them stick with it?
Stay. That's a good one.
I'm just thinking. Well, I mean,
finish that thought while I think about it.
Yeah, I'll give you a second to think about it. I'll give you a second. Say, hang on a sec. It's I know it's tough one here. It's tough.
Another dimension.
Because I'm thinking a lot of times, people will play projects and they'll play a team. Usually, not many people will play a generic, third person role like you did here. You know what I mean? So I call it the third person, where you're playing in it, but I'm playing the Bruins in my replay. Okay,
right.
I'm not third person, so I'm just sticking with the Bruins. Okay, so if that season goes south, I can speed it up, or I can
reset it.
I can reset it if I want, right? But if I'm setting up a couple seasons here that I'm just going to play down the middle, and I'm just going to watch it play out like you did. But what keeps you going for a long project? What keeps you going? I mean, does taking breaks and playing other things off to the side, does that help break it up, or does that distract you, or is that a good thing to go play some tennis here or a football game here? Or
I haven't played any other action PC besides what you've seen since January. Baseball. I played some hockey. I played some basketball. But as far as baseball and football, the only action PC I play are the ones that you see, because you don't want to get kind of ground into it. Dave Little can probably give you the same advice too, because he's done that with that 70-71 NBA, and what a marvelous job last night for Atlanta to upset Milwaukee.
Yeah, Dave Little. Let's a round of applause for Dave Little.
Yeah. It's kind of like a good book. How you doing, Chris? It's kind of like a good book. If you just kind of want to keep what kept me going, what advice would I give to keep going? You got to love what you do. I think that's the one thing. So, and again, apologies to Mike. Go find that video and watch it, please, afterwards. You got to love what you do.
Would you suggest, even before you start, find something that you're pretty sure you're going to like? Would that be a good starting point?
I would think that would be absolutely key. If you're not sure, I mean, I did the Celtics and Lakers from 79, and it kind of lost some fuzz for me after a bit because regular season NBA basketball is for good teams is blowout city. That's what heads up in Tennessee's doing. Oh, you're welcome. You're absolutely welcome. You gotta love what you do. You have to have an emotional connection, I think, to it to get into something like that. I think that's why a lot of people go with the single team replays. You have a connection. Good to see you, Appa Chatter. You have a connection to that team. Someone who's doing a Yankee replay has a connection to that team. What makes you keep doing it when things go south or you bit off more than you can chew? I guess for me, knowing that I wasn't doing this alone, that when I hit that button to start that stream, that people were gonna watch and people were gonna interact, and you didn't know what was going to happen over the course of that hour. And so we could joke about Chesterfields, or we could joke about bullpens, or just give you an hour away from the talk radio and the discourse in the country and anything, that part of it. And if you got a good game, great. You got something that maybe made you want to come back. And when you didn't, and if it was a bad game, and we would just get all chatty. Oh yeah, ground ball to second, throws it over to first, and it's now 17-2. I mean, those sort of things happen. But going back to the wintertime, you got to look forward to when you wake up. There's something in your day you got to look forward to do. And for me, I guess that was it. Tabletop Sports Delaware says I really fell in love with the 1919 White Sox by watching 8 Men Out, and many players from the Dead Ball League played that year. The birth of the infamous puns. You got a sound effect for that? All right. In Sports Time Machine, like I said, go back and watch his game because I feel bad. So, yes, it was a busy night. But, yeah, find something that you really feel passionate about.
And so sharing is a big deal. So even if you don't stream, you think, posting your results up on, Dave Little's Facebook page or some of the forums, or just sharing that is a big deal too.
Hold on. Let me get that one. Greg, it's nice to have you. 41 years. Now, hopefully you didn't have any sons that didn't have any hair that would win free haircuts in races. Yes. Getting feedback. I always felt when I would go to the Delphi forums and see that if all I saw was a box score without any description, without what did you get out of it, I wasn't going to read it. But I mean, there's nights that I've sat here over the years and read replays, whether it was on the Strap Award or over at Delphi or wherever, because you get wrapped into it like a book and seeing how people react to it, to me, is just as interesting, if not more so, than the actual games that were played. It's very, very, because look, there's not very many of us. Maybe 1,000, maybe 5,000. And 80% are never going to look at YouTube or a message board. And so, yeah, I mean, so to be able to put my own spin on it, without putting my own spin on it, if that makes sense, it worked for me. I called the games, I played the games, but I hope I wasn't the star of the game, if that makes any sense. Yeah. It's not my intention.
Yeah. Now,
thanks, Mike.
All right, so here's a tough question now.
Okay.
So you just had this, we'll call it a very successful project, not only personally because of who won and the people you picked up along the way and a lot of the people that watched and, Patreons you got in the whole bit. Is this going to be tough to top? Are you even going to try to top this, or is this kind of the top of the mountain here, and it's going to be tough to match this again? You know what I'm saying? It's like you write that hit song, 8675309. How do you top that on the next record? You know what I mean?
I think, you know, um, I don't worry about that as much. I think thanks, Chris, going from one sport to the other kind of gives that other one a rest. So it's not like that I'm starting a new baseball project on a long-term baseball project on Tuesday. I get a couple weeks to, yeah, I mean, um, it's been 8 months since I played really any NFL football in a long-term sense. And so when that starts for 86, I'm not trying to match 78. The players are going to be somewhat the same and a lot of it different. When we go back in January and start whatever baseball season pick out, I might actually say I don't want an 80 season this time. Give me a different decade. I don't know what we'll do with that yet, but yeah, not trying to and as Chris says, I don't try to match it. You go through and you do the best job that you can and let the players tell the story. And in this case, because it was Weaver's last competitive year, and because it was the Expo, I mean, let's be honest. If we had this conversation 3 weeks ago, I'm telling you, it's the Angels and the Dodgers that are going to meet in the World Series. The Dodgers have won 107 games, and the Angels led the American League in hitting, led the league in pitching, and were second in fielding. The best team on paper. So even in this game played on virtual paper, it didn't work out for for the Angels. And so no, if I was to do it like let's say 83-1, the Expos wouldn't be defending champions. It would have been the Cardinals. Each replay it's not like a series of books like mystery books. It's a one-off. And it's done. And I'm sad about it. But there's stuff I'll know for next time. But again, I want the players to tell this. I want to tell the player's story or the coach's story. I felt bad. I don't have any Jim Fanning stories. He wasn't there long enough. I mean, we joked about Earl for months and months and months.
So the 1982 baseball season, is this kind of put to bed for you, or would you ever consider doing this again, either with Action PC or maybe a different game, or is this season now?
Oh, I don't. As far as doing another like 8 month
maybe not an
project,
8-month one, but I mean, would you like if you played some of the other baseball
it
games?
would be curious. I would think to actually do a real playoff because they didn't make it. And so that I guess that would be different enough for me. I would be afraid now that if I replayed it, that Montreal wouldn't win.
That's what I was saying. Is this kind of settled law for you now?
Yeah, and yeah, I wouldn't want the result to change now, and that would be regardless of who won it. In my mind, the Expos won it. They earned it. You can't say they didn't earn it.
I know that when I did the game-winning drive playoff, I just did playoffs. If Tampa Bay went all the way and won that, I wouldn't want to play that again. I'm good. Tampa Bay won. My favorite team won it all. That's how it rolled out. I don't want to play it again because I don't want them to not win it again. And it's going to be tough because I want to go back and play. I think I bought for fast action football. I think I bought the 2015. I think because I want to play that Super Bowl. I want to play the Falcons Patriots Super Bowl game. That'd be a one-off game, but I kind of don't want to play it in case the Patriots don't win.
Right.
And I definitely don't want to play any Stanley Cups the Bruins lost. I can't live through
But
it.
see, that would be the thing. If I would be afraid to do 86 because I know the Red Sox won't do as well. But 75 or 67, which I'm doing off to the side, why not? They lost. Can I get them to win? Um, can you get? I mean, one of the things I think for Orioles fans should take heart with is we got them to Game 6 of the World Series. They had to. They won the division by 4 games. We got them in the playoffs. 3 teams did not make the playoffs. Made it in my replay, and there were a lot of surprises along the way. No, I tried to start that Islander replay again from 75, 76, and I just the first time was the best time. You're never going to repeat that exact experience, I don't think. And you know how cool it was. The one off we did doing Miami and Tampa beat Miami. And we were both pretty much amazed that Tampa could do it. But on that particular, they did everything right. I wouldn't want to play that game again. You got the result you wanted.
Yeah.
But yeah, you just can't go through. No 2 experiences are alike. I think the next replay, the 86 replay, will be successful for its own reasons. But hopefully it's because of good play. And okay, I'll make some mistakes. Of course. I'll learn not to, not even with Joe Morris pitch from the end zone. But especially in the last play of the game. But
all right. Last question from me, and if the chat room has any more questions for you about the project here, what was the toughest thing about this? You look back 8 months. What was the toughest thing when you look back and say, "Boy, that was the toughest thing"? Whether it was a moment or a week or a month, what was the toughest thing about this project?
I think knowing the last couple of weeks of the season and trying to figure out scenarios and how much of that do you play and how much of that do you show, because you don't want to bore people and you don't want to be on every day on a project. You really don't. The playoffs, you have to show it all, and you have to be upfront that you're going to show it all. It's one of the reasons why I really don't want to do a modern project. There's now another round of playoffs on top of it, and so 4 best of 5s, then 3 best of 7. But trying to figure out, I don't know if it's those last couple of weeks. You and I talked about it. I mean, there was one day I was looking at that. There might have been. I mean, how do you juggle it all? What do you show? And how do you not disappoint people if you don't show this? I got lucky because Detroit fell apart. Cleveland swept them in that doubleheader, and Baltimore won. It was great. But that's a tough part, trying to make sure that you give people a balance of what they want to watch, without it feeling like a grind. Because that last week of that 78 football season was not good. I think I did okay with it, but I remember being extremely frustrated, especially after the Eagles lost to the Giants, which is probably the only time I've ever been frustrated after the Eagles lost to the Giants ever. Because I knew what it meant. Like, okay, now you're thinking, okay, we'll be done by Wednesday, and I'll get some time off, and we'll go through and play the playoffs. But we were sitting there on Saturday night trying to figure out who got the last seat. That, for me, that was too much. That was too much. And so for me, that's the most frustrating part. But then again, what do you cut out?
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, I don't get there. I don't know how you do that without, you don't want to upset people.
Yeah, we got a question in the chat, and guys, get your questions in for Ron about the project here, if you have any questions about it.
What gives me the most pride? I like how it ended. I like how it ended. We had fun 2 to 3 days a week for 30 weeks. And I don't think you could have, even though the World Series didn't go 7, I don't think you could have scripted those playoffs any better. I mean, Baltimore came back from the brink twice just to get to the World Series. But it's the times that we spent together just doing this stuff. And I keep saying this. It doesn't matter to me who won. It's the story, and the fact that we got to share this story together was incredible. Do I get the same fun with football? I didn't think I would. I kind of that one, Dave, was kind of a lark. You go back and watch the first football game I did. It was the Giants in Tampa, a Saturday night special from Tampa because it was too hot to play on a Sunday. My screen isn't set right, so one of the end zones is partially cut off. I'm thinking, okay, I'll do it. I don't know if I'll like it, but I'll do it. And then we had a lot of fun with the Chiefs in there, but I really got hooked onto that Patriots story at the end of that 78 season. And I remember feeling bad when they lost. It's like, yep, I had a good time. I wasn't trying to get emotionally involved, but I got hooked. And I wanted to see the Cowboys win. I liked Roger Staubach. Nothing against the Steelers. What percentage of players complete a season replay? 10? Of that length? I mean, we did 95 to 100 games. The computer played most of it, but maybe 10? It's rare.
It probably depends on the actual project. I mean, I'm doing the 1973-74 California Golden Seals and shootout hockey, but I'm just playing the Seals. So I'm going to roll dice with 78 games. I'm 40 games through it. So I could probably complete that in the next few weeks if I really pushed. Again, that's not an 8-month project. That's something I'm chipping away at.
Right.
So that's a smaller project. The game-winning drive stuff, I just played a Tampa Bay season. It's 16 games, and the games take 5-6 minutes. So I mean, you can fly through that. But if you're talking a slog, I keep calling them a slog, and that's probably a bad
marathons. I mean, this was a marathon. They're marathons, not sprints.
That's a better word than a slog. Yeah. So, but if you're gonna play, whether it's on the computer or you're rolling the dice, I think it all depends on the size. The size of your product determines it, because, like I say, if that project goes south and you're not having fun, you're like, man, I got how many more months of this? No, I want to go do something fun.
Right. Right.
So I've been trying to chip away at the smaller projects, the one-offs, or skipping through a season on Action PC, because I don't want to have 10 projects sitting here not getting done. So to answer that question, it's really hard to say. And yeah, 162 games single season is daunting if you're going to play.
Incredibly daunting.
That's a long way to go, because you got to figure, depending on the game that you're using. The quick play games, you can do these things in 5, 10, 15 minutes.
Right.
The medium games, 20 minutes to a half hour. But if you're doing Action PC games, you're looking at a half hour minimum, for some of these games. And if you're rolling dice, and I don't know how long, Appa or any of these other games, or Strat, or these, I don't know how long they take to play.
Half hour, 30 minutes if you're not broadcasting.
So if you got, a half hour, 162, that's 80 hours of games,
We did. I mean, it's tougher. And I'll get to Chris in a second here. Or Mike in a second.
Rob, you got to leave it out. Someone else said that too. Leave it out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Put it away. I said that. I don't know if that was you or
I think that's pretty common advice. And Ken, who is the king of baseball replays, that's tough to do. I tell you what, I think, before I get to Mike's question, even though this was 93 or 94, not 162, the fact that it was all done in public, I think, makes it as tough as a full season 162 game replay, because I had to fill almost 100 hours of airtime with the project and keep you guys excited about it too. It's not just me being excited about it. It's you guys got to be excited about it too. And that's tough in a way, because sometimes the technical stuff doesn't work, or you have a cold, or you're tired, and you just don't want to do it. But you keep pressing on. Um, I mean, there's no. I set a deadline. I needed to be done uh by the opening week of the NFL season. That was my deadline for this project, and I did it with 3 weeks to spare. I mean, that's the thing is, commit. You're going to commit. No, I wasn't bored with it.
Yeah,
Nope.
I just saw that comment. I was gonna say put that up on the board.
Yeah, I wasn't bored with it. I think it's tougher. I think to do a single team replay, um, because every team has its ups and downs, and you're going to get to that point in August where even the best teams are going to poop the bed and go on a 4 or 5 game losing streak, or your reliever is going to, give up. I mean, give up a couple runs when they shouldn't, and you're going FML or other things like that, and so it gets kind of you get frustrated with.
I when I'm doing my Bruins hockey there, I love doing the one team, and I say that because even when I broadcast in real life, you start to get familiar with the team if you've done it enough times. Like the football games I'm going to do. If they have some returning players, I'm going to know who's where without even looking at them. So, and that's the same here when I do this, is that you get familiar with the teams, who's what and who's where. And so I kind of like that when I'm broadcasting the games, because I'm familiar with it. And like you said, when I do my hockey games, I'm into it. I'm broadcasting it. I'm in the booth watching this game, even though I'm clicking the buttons to pass and shoot. It's so fun. And I don't know how many times I say it. I need to get back to my Action PC hockey season. And when I stop playing it, I get 5 minutes into the game, and you could probably hear it on every one of my broadcasts. It's like, man, I love this game.
That's the sign of a good game engine. I'm not saying that this is not one is better than the other, but I felt that when doing the Islanders stuff, which was never online, that I couldn't wait to get to the next game. Because you get to know that one team. I mean, I feel like now I'm pretty familiar with the Baltimore Orioles, man. We did a lot of those games down the stretch. We had the 5-game series in the playoffs and the 6-game World Series. And you felt bad when they made mistakes. And sometimes that's just nothing you can do about it.
But that game plays well. All the Dave Koch games played well. And they're really fun to be to play and be a part of.
I was interested. There wasn't any time that, if I really felt like I could not give a good performance, I wouldn't do it. I mean, if you don't feel like doing it, then you don't do it. That's pretty much it. I mean, there's a lot. What kept me going? What kept me going? I knew I had a good audience. I loved what I did. Even the times that people said, if we really got to watch Dennis Lamb pitch again, yeah, you're going to watch Dennis Lamb pitch again, because look, I don't control the rotations. It's what Lurton went through.
And let's face it, the Dave Koch sports games, and not that I want to keep pumping the tires for that series of games, I don't know how they do it, but in the description of their games, they always say the end of the game ramps up. And it does. My hockey games, I'm on the edge of my seat in the third period. Your football games, Al's football games, you don't know how they're going to end. It's a miraculous catch. It's a kickoff return for a touchdown.
Ellis Hobbs.
With Ellis no Hobbs again. I've watched between you and Al. I've seen so many fantastic finishes with football. I've had them in hockey. I've had the lights go out in my hockey game, for crying out loud. Your baseball games have been some crazy stuff going on with them. So
we had a game where Montreal was supposed to clinch. It was the first chance, or Philadelphia was in there. So it was the last chance for Philly to get some ground on the Montreal, to try to make that a race going down the stretch. And because it's a dome, you can't have a rain delay, but there's delays set in the game. And so the umpire got sick in the 9th inning, and it ruined Jeff Reardon on that particular game because he got fatigued. I mean, that sort of realism is there, and you can get that with this. Is not this game is superior, and the other ones are not. I will say this, and last call for questions, guys. If you got any more, um, what makes the baseball game and the football game, uh, for me, is that you can call the games without reading the play-by-play, and so you get, "Hi, Dylan, how are you?" And so you can get a picture in your mind's eye as the person calling the game without having to be rely on the play-by-play text. And so you're genuinely surprised. There's a moment tonight when it play at the plate would it looked like the runner was going to beat it out, or the double play, or the ball bouncing off the thing, or whatever. Those reactions are genuine because it is so good, and it's so good at for OOTP as well. Here's a question for you.
How do I choose my lines to the opposing team?
You doubt you don't do that.
Well, yeah, I mean, if I'm playing the Dave Koch games, I don't choose lines because I'm playing the Bruins, so the computer does it. Shootout hockey, there's no lines. You're just rolling for the highlights. And I haven't played, at least I've tried a lot of other hockey games. They've all been kind of fast play games. I have not yet done a game with changing lines yet. Now, I have behind me, I have Strat Hockey over here that I haven't fired up yet, but I only got a
don't want to Wayne Pelletier to beat you is why. But
yeah, so I only got a couple teams. What do I got? Toronto, Pittsburgh from
Toronto, Pittsburgh 78, 79, I think.
Yeah, something like that. So if I were to play and change the lines, I would probably just go with my gut feeling on that because like Ron does, I want to take a third person view. So when I played the catch, I played San Francisco, Dallas in fast action football. That was play by play. I was doing my best for both teams. I wasn't sabotaging anybody or anything like that. So so if I were to start changing lines up, I would just go with my gut. Usually I would probably keep one and one, a line 2 versus 2 in the whole bit, but maybe at the end of the game, throw out the checking line and the scoring line for the teams that were winning or losing in the whole bit. So things like that. But I would definitely keep it as fair as possible because you like if you cheat yourself.
Exactly. And as a kid, when you're playing these games, yeah.
I mean, at this point here, we're playing, replaying old seasons that are in the book, and everyone's replay is different. And so for me, I'm satisfied with the roll of the dice or the flip of the card to determine what happens. That is where I get my fun, is because you just don't know. In fact, one of the, not to get too long-winded here, but one of the reasons I came over from like Madden and NHL was because I didn't want to play the quarterback anymore. I didn't want to play the guy with the puck all the time. I wanted to sit back and just coach. And in Madden, it was so hard to do that. You still had to do so many things, but I just wanted to call the play and see it happen. Now I can call the play and see it happen. I don't have to move the guy. I don't have to worry about my thumb slipping off or hitting the last time I played Madden, I kept hitting the wrong button and I just kept throwing to the wrong guy. And I just went, I can't do that. So I enjoy these type of games here where I let the dice decide or the cards decide what happens, and I just try to keep it as fair as possible.
My dream as a kid was to cover a World Series, to call it, because Vin Scully was my idol, and Keith Jackson was much better at baseball than he ever gave himself credit for. And if he had been smart, he would have put a roll of duct tape over Cosell's mouth. Anyway, and so I've been privileged enough to be paid to cover two. Covered the 2012 World Series for Bleacher Report, and the 2013 Red Sox World Series for a site that still owes me money. Live tweeted the whole damn thing. It was so great. And to sit there and call over even a fake one, even one that it's bits and bytes. It meant something to do it. And nothing against people who sit there and do Super Bowls and Stanley Cups and finals and that for that, because it is exciting. It's what we all go for. I think for me to do the full season and then do the playoffs on top of that just made it all the more meaningful for me. We'd done the things, okay, we didn't go to West Palm and Miami and call preseason games, but we started in April and we went all the way to October. And like I said, we did it with you guys, and that's what made it all worthwhile. And so, yeah, I got to call a World Series. Was it a real World Series? No. Am I ever calling a real World Series? No.
But you got to do it. And I know as a kid, my grandfather made me a hockey rink. It was just a piece of plywood he cut to be so big. He put little boards around it, drew hockey lines on it, and I had little guys, and I played, and I broadcasted the game. And that's what I always wanted to be, a broadcaster myself. And I do a little bit from time to time, but now I can do it every day if I want to, every single day here. And I can either go live or I can do it myself. But honestly, when I sit and I play here, just myself, like tonight you were doing your baseball game. I was rolling some dice playing football. I was broadcasting the game. I was that's what I do, and that's what I enjoy. That's my enjoyment. And yeah, Vin Scully, I enjoyed him as well. He was fun to listen to.
So again, thank you. Oh, any questions? Last call for questions.
Yeah, last call.
So much for, we get a monthly email from YouTube, which tells us how many views and how many minutes, which is stuff I know anyway. But how many, there was last month, I think I had close to 4,000 interactions, whether it was comments or likes, dislikes for my stuff. 4,000.
Now, does this want to make you tackle a body painting project of 8 months or 9 months?
It would take me 8 months to use enough eye bleach if it was you. Yes.
I'd be interested to see the comparison in numbers between 82 World Series and body painting.
God, million. I mean, it's amazing what people will watch. I'm delighted for every view that I get. But no, if you did that and didn't get banned for it.
Did you see that girl that sits in the tub? She sat in a hot tub, and she sold vials of water.
Did anybody got any questions? Yeah, she probably got 10 million views.
I don't know if they were 10 or 20 or $30 for a vial of water from the tub that she sat in. And they were sold out by the time I got there. That's all I'm going to say.
No, that's not Gary Carter. Not at all. All right. So we will do a deep statistical dive into the seasons at some point next week. Got the link. That's www.imsleepingonthecouch.com, Ken. I will do a deeper dive into it and tell you how close the numbers came to real life. And I think you'll be amazed at what did and what didn't come, along with giving out some awards. World Series MVP, Jerry White, didn't play in the LCS at all, and he has 4 homers in the World Series. That's another great thing, is you never know who the heroes are going to be. And if you don't know who Jerry White is, then you're in good company. He was a reserve player, and because of the way that the rules were in 1982, there was a DH. If this was an odd year, there would have been no DH in the World Series. But it was an even year, and it was a DH, and he had 4 home runs. So good for him. So, again, I'm not going to cry again. It really was emotional to sit there and end that. And today to sit there and put that Expos banner together. And knowing that if they didn't win tonight, that I had to find more room on my XSplit to try to find a place in the key combination to fire up an Oriole banner, because there would have been one if they had the chance.
Yeah.
And to do everything else and all the Patreons and stuff. I mean, it's all been so good. And so thank you very much. My apologies to Mike for stepping on his game. Please go watch that on tape. Thanks for Dave Gardner for dragging me into this. And so I'm not sure if you'll see me tomorrow or not, unless you're playing Dungeons and Dragons.
We might have an interview tomorrow for Digital and Dice.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
We got to try to hook up with.
He said sure. By the way.
Yeah, so we'll check it out.
I don't know if I got a family function tomorrow or not. So if worse comes to worse, you can talk with him.
Well, yeah. Well, your day opened up, by the way, because there's no game.
There's no World Series. So if he wants to go later in the afternoon, I'm free now up till I think 6:30. Chris, right? So yeah. All right. So 3 streams is enough for me. You've seen enough of my face. But again, thank you so much. All right. So for Dave or Mr. Chesterfield, that was funny. Remember to change. Yeah, 6:37. So yeah, I'm free till about 6 now. And if my family does pop up, I'll let you know. All right. Thank you so much, guys. I really do appreciate it. We'll talk to you Tuesday at lunch, and I think we're going to do some AFL football, if not before then. So have a good night. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. He's Dave. I'm Ron. We'll talk to you soon. Good night.